The Courage to be Disliked, by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. Introduction. Imagine you're in a coffee shop. It's a nice afternoon. You're reading a book you love, and you're wearing your favorite jacket. Suddenly, a waiter rushes past, stumbles, and spills a dark, hot coffee all over you. In that split second, what happens? For most of us, a hot surge of anger flashes through our veins. We might shout, maybe cause a scene. We'd say later, "I couldn't help it. I just blew my top." It was an uncontrollable emotion, a reaction to an event. But what if I told you that wasn't true? What if I told you that in that moment, you fabricated the emotion of anger? You didn't just get angry, you used anger. You used it as a tool to quickly and efficiently make the waiter submit, to make him listen, to make him understand the gravity of the situation without the messy, time-consuming effort of a calm conversation. You chose anger to achieve a goal. This single, radical idea is just the first step into a world of thinking that has quietly sold over 5 million copies and become a cultural phenomenon, first in Japan and now across the globe. The book is The Courage to be Disliked, written by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga, and it's not just another self-help book. It's a dialogue, a conversation that feels like it's been happening for centuries, between a wise philosopher and a deeply unhappy young man. This book is a modern gateway to the powerful, and often overlooked, psychology of Alfred Adler, a giant in the field who stood shoulder to shoulder with Freud and Jung. Yet while Freud told us we are prisoners of our past traumas, Adler believed something far more revolutionary. He believed that we are not defined by our past, by our environment, or by anything that has ever happened to us. He believed that at any moment, every single one of us has the power to choose our own life. So, here is my promise to you. By the end of our time together, you will understand a new blueprint for freedom. A freedom that doesn't depend on your circumstances, your history, or even what other people think of you. You will discover why all of your problems, every single one, are problems of interpersonal relationships. And most importantly, you will be handed the key to unlocking what the authors call the courage to be happy. It's a journey that might challenge everything you believe about yourself, but it's one that could change everything. Book summary. Our story begins, as it does for so many of us, with a deep feeling of being stuck. We meet a young man who is unhappy with his life. He feels trapped by his personality, his deep-seated feelings of inferiority, and the unchangeable events of his childhood. He believes that people are fundamentally unable to change. His world is complicated, chaotic, and unfair. He seeks out a philosopher who teaches the exact opposite, that the world is astonishingly simple, and that happiness is available to every single person, right here and now. The young man, of course, thinks this is absurd. And so begins a conversation that unfolds over 5 nights, a conversation that dismantles the very foundations of how we see ourselves. The first and most powerful wall to be torn down is the idea of trauma. This is a concept that has dominated our culture for a century, thanks in large part to Sigmund Freud. The Freudian view, known as etiology, is the study of causation. It tells a simple story: something bad happened to you in the past, a cause, and that is why you are suffering now, the effect. Your parents divorced, so you're afraid of commitment. You were bullied, so you lack confidence. The past determines the present. It's a comforting story in a way, because it tells us, it's not your fault. But the philosopher, channeling the wisdom of Alfred Adler, offers a startling alternative. He says, trauma does not exist. This doesn't mean that terrible events don't happen. They do. It means that no experience, in and of itself, is the cause of our success or our failure. We are not defined by our experiences, but by the meaning we give them. He explains that Adlerian psychology is not a psychology of causes, but a psychology of goals. This is called teleology. It doesn't ask, what in your past caused you to be this way? It asks, what goal are you trying to achieve by being this way? Let's take the young man's friend, a person who has shut himself in his room for years, afraid to go outside. The ideological view would search for a cause. Perhaps he was bullied, or had a difficult relationship with his parents. Teleology turns this completely on its head. It suggests the friend first had the goal, I don't want to go out, and to achieve that goal, he then manufactured the feelings of anxiety and fear. Why would anyone do that? Because staying in his room achieves certain goals. His parents worry about him constantly. He becomes the center of their attention. If he were to step outside, he would just be one face in a faceless crowd, average, or maybe even less than average. By staying inside, he remains special. His anxiety, though very real, becomes a tool to achieve his goal of not having to face the challenges of the world. This is a tough pill to swallow. It feels like we're being told our suffering is our own fault. But Adler's point is not about blame, it's about power. If our present is determined by our past, we are powerless. We are victims of circumstance, forever chained to events we cannot change. But if our present is determined by the goals we set for ourselves, then we have the power to change those goals at any moment. Your life isn't something that happens to you. It's something you choose, here and now. This leads us to the second monumental idea, a statement so bold it seems almost ridiculous at first. The philosopher claims, all problems are interpersonal relationship problems. Think about it for a moment. All problems. Not some, not most. All. The young man struggles with this, just as we do. What about feelings of inferiority? What about not having enough money, or not liking your appearance? Surely these are personal struggles, internal worries. The philosopher explains using his own story. He is not a tall man, only about 5 feet tall. For a long time, he was terribly concerned about his height. This was his feeling of inferiority. But then he asks a crucial question. Where did this feeling come from? If he were the only person on the entire planet, would he even know he was short? Of course not. The concept of short only exists because he compares himself to other people. His feeling of inferiority wasn't an objective fact, it was a subjective interpretation that arose from an interpersonal relationship. This is where Adler makes a critical distinction. A feeling of inferiority, the sense that you are lacking in some way, is not a bad thing. In fact, it's universal. We are all born helpless, and we all have a natural desire to improve, to move forward. Adler called this the pursuit of superiority. A healthy feeling of inferiority can be a launchpad for growth. If you feel you lack knowledge, you study. If you feel you lack a skill, you practice. The problem arises when this feeling curdles into an inferiority complex. An inferiority complex is when you start using your feeling of inferiority as an excuse. You say, I'm not well educated, so I can't succeed. Or, I'm not good looking, so I can't find love. You begin to act as if your shortcomings determine your fate. Adler says this is a lie. The reality is closer to this. I don't want to make the effort to succeed, so I will use my lack of education as an excuse. It's a way of avoiding the challenges of life, a way of protecting your pride by never putting it to the test. This avoidance reveals the true nature of our struggles. If you take away all the people from your life, if you were to live on a deserted island, would you still be self-conscious about your appearance? Would you still feel anxious about your social status? All these feelings that seem so personal are, in fact, born from the context of other people. They are, at their core, interpersonal relationship problems. And if we look closely at these relationships, we often find a hidden, destructive force at play: competition. We are taught from a young age to see life as a race. We compare ourselves to our siblings, to our classmates, to our colleagues. When someone else succeeds, we feel like we've lost. When we succeed, we feel a fleeting sense of victory. When you see the world through the lens of competition, everyone around you becomes a rival. You can't truly celebrate their happiness, because their happiness feels like your defeat. The world becomes a perilous place, filled with enemies you must be on guard against. You can never relax, because you might lose. Even if you keep winning, you live in constant fear of the day you won't. Adler's philosophy invites us to step off this battlefield entirely. He suggests we see other people not as rivals, but as comrades. Imagine everyone walking on the same flat plane. We are all different, we walk at different speeds, in different directions, but we are all equal. The goal is not to be better than anyone else. The goal is simply to move forward from where you were yesterday. A healthy pursuit of superiority is about competing with your ideal self, not with the person next to you. When you can genuinely see the people around you as comrades, the world transforms. You are no longer afraid of being judged. You can celebrate their successes with all your heart, because their happiness is no longer a threat to your own. You start to feel safe. You start to feel that you have a place. But how do we make this shift? How do we stop seeing life as a competition and start seeing people as comrades, especially when we feel hurt or controlled by them? This brings us to the most practical and perhaps the most challenging tool in Adlerian psychology, the separation of tasks. It's a simple idea with profound implications. To solve our relationship problems, we must first learn to distinguish between what is my task and what is your task. And we must not intervene in other people's tasks. How can you tell whose task it is? The philosopher offers a simple method. Ask yourself, who is the one who will ultimately receive the result of the choice that is made? Let's take a common example: a child who won't study. A parent might force the child to go to their room, hire tutors, or yell at them, believing it's their duty. But whose task is studying? Who will ultimately face the consequences of not studying? Good grades or bad, getting into a good school or not? The child. Therefore, studying is the child's task. A parent's constant intervention, study, do your homework, is an intrusion into the child's task. This intrusion creates conflict. The child rebels, not because they hate studying, but because they are trying to protect their own territory, their own freedom. So what should the parent do? Nothing? No. Adler does not recommend non-interference. The parent should make it clear that they are ready and willing to offer help whenever the child needs it. They can create an environment conducive to learning. But they cannot force the child to study. You can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. Forcing it will only make it thirsty later. This principle applies everywhere. Your boss is in a terrible mood. It's not your task to manage his emotions. That is his task. Your task is to do your own work to the best of your ability. A friend is struggling with a decision. It's not your task to make the decision for them. That is their task. Your task is to offer support and be there for them. And now we arrive at the heart of the book's title. What about when people don't like you? What about when they criticize you, or judge you, or misunderstand you? Whose task is that? According to the separation of tasks, how another person feels about you, what they think of you, and whether they like you or not, that is their task. It is not yours. You have absolutely no control over it. Your task is to live your life with sincerity, to choose what you believe is the best path for yourself. How others judge that path is their business. This is what it means to have the courage to be disliked. It doesn't mean you should try to be disliked, or that you won't feel a sting when it happens. It means understanding that if you are living a free and authentic life, it is inevitable that there will be people who do not approve of you. To try and be liked by everyone is to live a life of profound unfreedom, a life where you are constantly trying to satisfy the expectations of others. It is to live other people's lives. Freedom, the philosopher says, is not being a slave to your impulses. It's not about doing whatever you feel like. True freedom is having the courage to be disliked. It is the proof that you are exercising your freedom and living in accordance with your own principles. This is a lonely idea at first. Separating tasks feels like cutting our bonds with others. But Adler says this is just the beginning. The separation of tasks is not the end goal, it is the entry point. It untangles the knots of our relationships so that we can begin to build real, healthy connections. The ultimate goal of all our interpersonal relationships is something Adler called community feeling. Community feeling is the sense that you have a place in the world. It's the feeling that it's okay to be here. It's a deep sense of belonging. This is not something that is given to you. It's something you must actively attain. And you attain it through 3 interconnected practices: self-acceptance, confidence in others, and contribution to others. First is self-acceptance. This is not the same as self-affirmation. Self-affirmation is lying to yourself, saying I am strong, I can do it, even when you feel you can't. Self-acceptance is honestly acknowledging what you cannot change, and having the courage to focus on what you can. You may have been born with certain traits, or had certain experiences. You accept those things as they are. If you scored a 60 out of 100, you don't pretend it's a 100. You start from that 60 and think about how you can move closer to 100. You accept your irreplaceable self, just as you are. Once you can accept yourself, you gain the courage for the second practice, confidence in others. Adler distinguishes between trust and confidence. Trust is conditional. I will trust you if you don't betray me. It requires collateral. Confidence, on the other hand, is unconditional. It is believing in others without asking for anything in return. It is deciding to see others as your comrades, even if you have no proof. This sounds risky. If you have unconditional confidence, won't you just get taken advantage of? Perhaps. But if you start from a place of doubt, you can never build a deep and meaningful relationship with anyone. The other person will sense your doubt instantly. It's only by taking the risk of confidence that you open the door to a real connection. The decision to have confidence in others is your task. How they respond to that confidence is their task. Finally, with self-acceptance and confidence in others as your foundation, you can move to the third practice, contribution to others. This is the feeling that I am of use to someone. This is the key to worth. Our worth is not determined by what others think of us, but by our own subjective sense that we are contributing. This contribution doesn't have to be some grand, heroic act. It can be as simple as washing the dishes after a family meal, offering a word of thanks to a friend, or doing your job well. The work itself is a contribution. The important thing is not that others praise you for it. In fact, Adler warns against seeking praise. Praise is a judgment passed from someone in a superior position to someone in an inferior one. It creates a vertical relationship. Instead of praise, we should seek a horizontal relationship built on gratitude and encouragement. The simple words "thank you" from a comrade give you a real sense of your contribution. And here, we arrive at the philosopher's definition of happiness. Happiness is the feeling of contribution. When you feel you are of use to your comrades, when you have a sense of contribution, you can accept yourself. You feel you have a place. You have a sense of belonging. You are happy. This brings us to the final, and perhaps most beautiful, idea of the book. The young man, having followed this path, is still troubled. He asks, what is the meaning of life? If there is no grand destination, no mountain to conquer, then what is it all for? The philosopher's answer is liberating. He says that life is not a line, a story that starts at birth and ends at death. If life were a line, then most of our lives would be spent en route to some future destination: graduation, a career, retirement. All our moments would be just preparation for something else. Instead, he suggests, think of life as a series of dots. A series of moments. Life is a series of nows. The past doesn't exist. The future doesn't exist. There is only the here and now. Your life is not a journey to a destination. Your life is a dance. When you are dancing, you are not trying to get somewhere. The goal is the dancing itself. Every step, every movement, is the fulfillment. A life that is lived like a dance is a life where every moment is complete in itself. There is no en route. You are always arriving. If you are studying for an exam, dance the dance of studying today. If you are working on a project, dance the dance of your work today. Focus a spotlight so intensely on the here and now that you can see neither the past nor the future. This is not a recipe for hedonism or irresponsibility. It is a call to live earnestly in the present moment. Because this moment is the only reality you have. And what gives this dance its direction? What is the guiding star that keeps us from getting lost? It is contribution to others. As long as you keep moving in the direction of contributing to your comrades, you will be free. You will be happy. And you will always have a sense of your place in the world. Someone has to start. Other people might not be cooperative. But that is not connected to you. You should start. Without regard to whether others are cooperative or not. The world is simple. And life is simple too. Commentary. As we come to the end of this profound journey, it's worth pausing to reflect on why these ideas feel so radical, and why they matter so much right now. We live in a world that is obsessed with etiology, with finding causes in our past. We are encouraged to diagnose our traumas, to label our anxieties, and to build our identities around our histories. While this can be validating, it can also become a cage, reinforcing the idea that we are unchangeable products of our past. Adler's teleology is a gust of fresh air. It doesn't dismiss our pain, but it reframes it. It tells us that our power lies not in dissecting the past, but in choosing our goals for the future, right here in this moment. In a culture of victimhood, this is an empowering call to responsibility, not the responsibility of blame, but the responsibility of authorship. You are the author of your own life. The concept of all problems are interpersonal relationship problems feels especially resonant in the age of social media. We are more connected than ever, yet we often feel more judged, more competitive, and more insecure. We curate our lives for the approval of others, constantly checking for likes and comments, which is nothing more than a modern-day craving for recognition. Adler saw this trap 100 years ago. He understood that living for the expectations of others is a form of slavery. The separation of tasks and the courage to be disliked is the antidote. It's a declaration of independence from the tyranny of other people's judgment. And finally, the idea of life as a dance. Our society is built on the mountain climbing model of life. We are always striving for the next milestone, the next achievement, the next destination. We live in a perpetual state of not yet. We will be happy when we graduate, when we get the promotion, when we retire. Adler tells us this is the greatest life lie. By always focusing on a future that does not exist, we neglect the only life we actually have, the one happening right now. So, how can we start to put these powerful ideas into practice today? Here are a few simple actions. First, for the next 24 hours, consciously practice the separation of tasks. Anytime you feel a surge of anxiety, anger, or worry related to another person, stop and ask yourself that simple question: whose task is this? If your friend is making a poor decision, recognize that the consequences are theirs. Your task is to support, not to control. If someone makes a passing comment about you, recognize that their opinion is their task. Your task is to live by your own values. Just this simple act of observation can create a profound sense of lightness and freedom. Second, find one small, invisible way to practice contribution. Don't do it for a thank you or for any recognition at all. Tidy up a common space at home or at work. Send an encouraging message to a friend without expecting a reply. Do something that makes you feel, I am of use to someone, even if that someone is the broader community. Pay attention to that quiet, internal feeling of worth that it generates. That feeling is the seed of happiness. The Courage to be Disliked is not an easy book. It challenges us at every turn. But its message is one of incredible hope. It tells us that we are not fragile beings, broken by our past. We are powerful creators, capable of choosing our own meaning, our own relationships, and our own happiness, right here and now. That was a deep dive into The Courage to be Disliked by Ichiro Kishimi and Fumitake Koga. We've explored the core principles today, but I'll be honest with you, a summary can only ever be a map. The real magic happens when you walk the territory yourself. It's in the quiet moments of reading, when a particular phrase or story resonates in a way you didn't expect, that the true transformation occurs. This summary is designed to help you decide if this book is worth your time and attention. If anything we've talked about has sparked something in you, I encourage you to grab a copy. Reading it isn't just about learning. It's an experience that can genuinely change the way you see yourself and the world around you. You can find a link to the book in the description below. Also, if you found this summary valuable and it gave you a new perspective, please take a moment to hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. That way, you won't miss our next journey into another life-changing book from the billionaire's bookshelf. Let's keep growing together.